Hi guys, and welcome back to Cyber Launch. I'm Phil Wilkinson, and we are continuing our series on building an AI chatbot in Voiceflow. In today's episode, we are going to be looking at APIs and integrating a make workflow into our current bot. If you haven't watched the previous videos on the beginnings of building the basic bot and then the advanced functions, I suggest you go and check them out. The link to the playlist is here. And without further ado, let's crack on. Quick one before we move on, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and hitting the notification bell. It really helps me out. Okay, so here you can see the template that we've been building up over the last couple of videos. This will, again, the latest version of this template will be available in the description below. But again, if you go back to the previous videos, if you haven't already done so, you will see the first two, which was the basic loop, and then the additions that we've done here, which is capturing basic user details, which we are now going to use our API function to move it over to CRM, or in this case, because we haven't got a CRM set up, we're just going to get it to send us an email to say, you've got a new customer, you need to arrange contact with them. So obviously from previous, as we can see, we've asked them if they want to book a call, capturing their first name or their name, their email address, get them to confirm that that's correct. And then obviously the next step is our API block. So if we didn't put that in last time, then you need to be going over to dev and API, drag that out, and this is the block that you're going to get. So what we want to do is we're going to click on that, and obviously we've got these different bits. So get, post, put, delete, patch. So obviously, depending on the API we were using, we would do different things. Get would be if we want to retrieve information. So if we were using our own API key for ChatGPT rather than the built-in one, we could use that to get that, or to get information from an external database. In this instance, we're going to use post because we want to send data to an API in order to send us an email. Now, obviously, we need an URL for that before we can really move on. So what we're going to do is we're going to head over to Make, and we're going to set up our workflow there so we're ready to receive data. Okay, so here we are on our Make dashboard. If you haven't already set up an account, it's really straightforward. I'm pretty sure you can use a normal standard Google login to do it as well. So get yourself set up, get whichever subscription you want. There is a free subscription, and I believe there is also a trial, so you can try the pro version for a little bit as well. But yeah, get it set up. For this instance, the free version is fine. Don't worry about having to have a higher version if you're not going to use it past this point. So what we want to be looking at is create a new scenario, and you're going to get this sort of workspace that we can set up a new scenario in. Now, obviously, the first thing that we want our workflow to be doing is capturing data from our bot. So if we click on the plus, we want to be searching for webhook. If I could spell, there we go, webhooks. There is a couple of options, but we're just going to use this this straightforward one. It's easy enough to do. So we want custom webhook, and then you'll need to add a new hook. So we can call it whatever we want. So let's call this, so it makes a little bit more sense, test chat bot. IP restrictions, this is just so you can prevent anybody else from using it. If you only want it to come from a static IP address, could be useful for cybersecurity reasons, but obviously in this instance, we're not too fussed. It's going to be fine just leaving that as blank. Advanced settings, don't need to worry about these at the moment. These are if like we want to get the headers from the information that's being sent over, which could be useful if you're doing database requests. And different JSON pass-through and HTTP methods as well. Again, don't stress about those at the moment. They're not anything that we need to worry about. So click on save. Okay, and now we've got our link, which is going to be what we need to pass to Voiceflow to get this to work. So that's what we're going to copy over first. So back on our Voiceflow, and in here, make sure that's post, and then paste our hook web link into there. Now, obviously that's all well and good, but we haven't got any data to send over at the moment. So we need to make sure that we're sending the data that we want the email to have. We're going to put it all into body, and it's going to be form data. So we're going to go with the keys. This is what Voiceflow is going to see as its variable, and we're going to enter the value from our variables in Voiceflow. So let's go first of all with name, and in there we're going to put our customer name. We're going to add a new one, and we're going to go email, and in there we're going to put in our email. And that's pretty much all the data that we need to send over for now. If we were putting in any other bits like phone numbers, company data, or calendar information, that sort of stuff, then obviously we'd fill that out a bit more. But with regards to building an email from it, obviously the only two bits that we actually need from this is their name and their email address for what we've captured here, and we can build out the email within Make. So what we're going to do first is we're going to test it. So we'll click on send request, and in here we're going to put in some test detail. So let's go phil@test.com. Okay, and we're going to see that sent over. And also, this is what we want to look for. If it's anything other than 200 OK, it's probably going to be red, and it's probably going to be a failure. So that's what we want to see. We want to see that it successfully sent it to that web link. So if we leave that open a sec, we'll go over here. We can see that this one is successfully determined. So it's actually picked up that something's come through. So we're going to click on OK, and then we are going to say add another module. And this one is going to be nice and straightforward, and we're going to say email. Now there is also, I think you can also link in, let's see, let's go. We could also link in Gmail, I believe, if you prefer to use Gmail, but we've got our own domain, so we're going to just use a straightforward email with a SMTP setup. So we want to send an email in this instance. So I've already got my email connection set up there. Okay, so if we quickly go through the process of adding a connection, mine's already in there. Obviously, you don't need to see my connection details. So if you go in there, click connection type, select the appropriate one for you. So it's likely going to be SMTP. Call it whatever you want. We can just leave it as default for now. Email provider. If you've got one of these, you can add that in. Obviously, if you've got a private domain, it's going to be other. Add in the email address that it's going to be sending from. So, whatever your private domain is, whether it's admin@yourdomain.com. Add in your name. So this is the name that it's going to be presented on the email as being sent by. So you might want your name, you might want the company name, however you choose to do that. SMTP server, you're going to have to get this from your provider. It's going to be something like smtp.something.com. Port, obviously, again, from your provider, and all the connection settings, so whether it uses TLS, all that sort of stuff. And then obviously if you've got a username and password, which you probably do, you'll need to put those in there as well. There is some advanced settings where you can put in certificates and keys and all that sort of stuff as well, but most of the time those are fine. We don't need to put those in. So click on save on that, and you'll have your connection in the top there. So once you've done that, save message after sending. You probably don't want to do this if you're going to end up filling your inbox quite quickly, because the chances are the way that we're going to do this, it's going to send you the message anyway. So we don't necessarily need to save a message to know that we've been sent a message, if that makes sense. So don't stress about that. Leave it as no. Add recipient. So obviously, where do you want it to go? whatever inbox you prefer it to go into, whether it's the same inbox it's being sent from or whether you want it to go into a specific one. I'll leave that up to you to decide and sort that out. Subject, it's probably best to call it something obvious. So, let's call it, test chatbot lead form. But yeah, you can call it something that it makes sense to you for when a new lead comes in, whether you go new lead or whether you put the customer's name in there, whatever you want to do. So as you can see, like we've already started to get these 2 items that we've sent over as tags that we can start adding in. Whether you want to keep it as HTML or plain text, again, it's preference really. Plain text is probably fine if you just literally capturing data. You maybe don't want the overhead of HTML. So in here we can put in, if we do use HTML, we can obviously use HTML tags in the content. But if we was to say just use plain text, we can literally just put in very simple, you have a new lead, their name is, and then click on name. Please contact them via their email, and then email. So, however you want to put that custom message in, it's going to ultimately go to you or a member of your team, whatever the case may be. So just structure it in a way that makes sense for you. Obviously, if we add in more like phone number and everything else, you might want to put in a full sort of form in there with like it nicely laid out. But this is just giving you an idea of the basic structure. We can add attachments in there as well if we wanted to put in something else. This would be a more advanced workflow. Maybe we're grabbing, maybe they've filled out a form or sent something over, like a contract or something like that, and then you want to add in a different part of the workflow before the email, which grabs that new document from wherever you've stored it, whether it's a Google Drive or whatever the case may be. So you can add that attachment onto there, but obviously we're not doing that, so that's fine. Advanced settings, again, if you wanted to add in other bits, so you could put in a copy recipient and a blind copy recipient. So you might want to do this for if you had a team that was looking after it, but you also wanted to monitor it yourself, to make sure that it's getting done. You can put in from addresses in here if you wanted to. You can put in the sender details, how it always appears, replies, all that sort of stuff, all the general sort of email things that you would want to add in. But for now, they're not important to us. We're just going to leave it as default. Okay, so let's put in there, otherwise it's not going to work. So I'm going to put in my info at ai.co.uk. So, okay, cool. And that is the very basic workflow of capturing the user's data and sending it into an email. So what we're going to do now is we're going to see if that works okay. So let me actually move myself out of the way up here. Okay, and as you can see down in this bottom left-hand corner, we've got run once. So this is what we're generally going to use for testing purposes. And then once we know it's happily running away, we will then turn it on to schedule. So let's run that and see if it works. We're going to have to head back over to the bot to actually send some data. So let's click on resend there. Okay. We've come over, these have gone green, so it's just obviously done it quickly in the background. So we know that both of those have worked. And now, just to prove a point, so as we can see on this window here, we've got our email come through to my email address. You have a new lead, their name is Phil. Please contact them via their email, phil@test.com. Okay, so we know that's now working, so we can close that one off. And then as previous we've already set the success that goes back to our main loop. So once they've filled out the details, it's going to head back over here and just go through is there anything else I can help with today? Obviously, we want to also sort out if it fails. Now, if it fails at this point, we could set up error handling to potentially inform the user. So we could end up going back and going, unfortunately this has failed. Would you like to retry? If it has failed, there's probably something wrong in the background, like the automation has fallen over, and it's not picking it up, or the links changed or something like that, which is going to mean that if you continue to try and ask them to do it, it's more than likely going to fail again, and just cause frustration. So it might be better to do it a slightly different way, where you'd go, we can go text, and we could say, unfortunately, we have encountered an issue. Please contact us via info@classai.co.uk. Okay, so that's just saying, yeah, apologies that we haven't been able to process it, but here's our email address if you want to contact us. And then we could go to block and home and back to main loop. So then that carries on. And that is the basis of setting up a simple API link within Voiceflow and Make. Obviously, we can get way more advanced with this. There's a lot more we can do, where we're calling databases and all sorts of stuff. But this gives you a basic idea of how to work. And we've also created into our lead generation form the ability for a user to contact us and for us to get back to them. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up our episode for today on how to integrate a Make workflow and connect the API to your Voiceflow chatbot. So have a play around with that. As I said previously, the template for Voiceflow and the template for the Make workflow will be in the description below, as well as the links for Voiceflow and Make. And if you do want to get in touch with me or take up any services for automation, then also the link for my agency, Class AI, is also in the description below. As always, if you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell. And until next time, see you later.